So one of the things that we talk about a lot every time at Expo, and we covered a lot within this this Expo for the last couple of days, is what's going on with battery technology and what's happening with battery use and the life of them. And there's a lot of applications for what happens after the vehicle is done being used. And so Adam Cebita, and so you're the CEO of Prius Hybrid Battery of San Jose. Am I saying that right?
Correct, yeah. And we rebranded to Prius and Tesla Service Center in, about mid last year. So focusing, on all hybrid electric vehicles to bring them back in life. And, specialty obviously is the most hybrid vehicle on the road. That is more than 10, 15 years old is the Priuses. And the most electric car on the road that are 10 plus years old are Teslas. So these are mostly what we work on, but we work on all hybrid electric cars, yeah.
And by working on that, it's one thing is you can actually just provide maintenance, but another thing is actually when the batteries have, maybe a need for being used in a different way down the line, you guys can leverage that battery and do a variety of cool things with it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's really all we do every day is just really batteries and motors. Is that these are the two things that you can't really find elsewhere. Dealership wants to sell you a brand new battery or a brand new motor where, it still has a lot of life left in it. And that's kind of what we specialize in. Give the same components a new life, if they are capable, obviously, of. And then there's batteries that are a little lower quality, degraded in general. There's really no options to rebuild. So those we try to come up with new solutions outside the dealerships to bring those cars back into life. And then also looking into what are the ways that we can use old batteries for instead of going to recycling. When they have a lot of energy left, it's just not good for a car. You don't want to drive 20 miles on an electric vehicle, so at least we can use them in other projects.
Well, how does that look from a diagnosis perspective? Because again, this is something that even traditional mechanics, they don't know how to do. And oftentimes, as you described, we were talking a little bit earlier, is you can go to a dealership and they're not also going to just, again, try to sell you something because they may not necessarily know how to do it either. What does a typical diagnosis process look like when someone comes in and says, hey, I think something's wrong with my EV or my hybrid? What is a step-by-step process you might use?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the newer cars in general have a pretty robust computer systems. They have diagnostic codes and stuff like that. So there's a lot of information it gives you in terms of knowing that, your battery is bad or your motor is bad without manufacturers. But basically, when a manufacturer service center, the only option they have is to replace the battery or replace the motor. That's what they're concerned about. Is your battery good or bad? Is your motor good or bad? That's quite different than what we are doing because we want to see, okay, your battery is bad. How bad is it? Is it circuit boards? Is it connections? Is it coolant flooding? There's a lot of different areas. Certain degraded cells we can replace or modules. So we dig deeper into it. I mean, our diagnostics is always free. That's kind of what we've been famous for the past 9 years. So we look at the specific data from the batteries. Like we tell them, what the quality of this battery is, what's the likelihood of it rebuilding, what our expectation of life of it. You can come out of it, and then you kind of give what options the customers have. And then, same as in motors, whether it's a Prius engine that has a bad head gasket or a Tesla motor that had coolant leaking into, whining noise in the gearbox, that kind of stuff. What interests us is we want to look into the motor to see, for example, coolant leaks into, Tesla Model S. It's not a secret. We want to see how far the coolant went in. Is the coolant quite ingested into the electrical side? Is it just in the gearbox area where we could just replace bearings, rebuild the gearbox alone? Or the motor's in a healthy spot, you just want gearbox rebuild, you want to cut off the coolant flow that starts leaking? Or it's a drastic failure where you got coolant in the stator, we actually remanufacture those in-house. They're 10 times better than Tesla's reman quality.
And 10 times better.
10 times better, and I guarantee that, and we can bring testers and show you both side by side.
I like it when the claims like that. It's just like, no, this is it. This is like the Coke Pepsi challenge. It's like, just do yourself a favor, don't bring in the soda. We're good.
It's just not even close.
Not even close. No, that's awesome. And what we're talking about too is it's kind of like mechanics 2.0, right? It's like everything that has been done at an auto shop or anything for like diagnosing something wrong with a car for decades now. You're discussing, it's like, yeah, but we do it on the vehicles that people are now buying that inevitably we're going to have a lot more people that are tuned in to how to do what you do. So on one hand, you've got a shop that does it. Is this something that you think you could also help other places figure out how to do better, almost even provide training?
There's always a limitation of how many consumers can you help, especially when it comes to a field that there's nobody that works in this industry, or at least don't work in a quality manner. Let's put it that way. So we are exploring wholesale options of being more of technical education to shops. They're scared of these cars, even though if they want to do a mechanical repair or water pump, they just don't know what to do next.
Well, again, what you're describing too is again like that fear of the unknown. I mean, it's funny. It's like Expo. Part of why it exists is just to give people a chance to learn about the products up front. What you're talking about is a fear of the unknown of the people that need to be working on these cars to keep them on the road.
Yeah, speaking of unknown, I mean, on average, what do you think the mileage has been so far that you have seen of vehicles coming in? I've been an EV owner for a little while, and I'm curious about that stat. It's like, how far do these vehicles go before they need that kind of service?
What you're seeing, yeah, it's what's typical.
So for older vehicles, right? Yeah, it's quite different because Tesla in general, I mean, their batteries have been pretty robust in terms of quality of cells. They make the cells themselves, obviously with partnership with Panasonic and so forth. Cell quality have been pretty good on the Tesla side. So when Tesla is detecting issues, it usually drops your charge range. So Tesla would usually, for example, that goes to 60, will drop suddenly to like 120 or 70, 70 miles or 40 miles. It's really not the real range of the battery. It's just more of trying to protect the battery, trying to protect the car and that kind of stuff. So that's quite a little bit different because that range kind of dropped dramatically. But when we rebuild batteries for Teslas, we are trying to reach 90 to 95%. We are giving 80% range guarantees to customers.
Okay.
Even though when the car was brand new, Tesla's only giving a 70% warranty, 70% capacity warranty, which is quite understandard. We're trying to give 80% capacity, which is industry standard for lithium-ion batteries over 10 years. But when it comes to other cars, usually you'll see those range drops, right? Like a Nissan Leaf, you got 80-mile range for the first generation model, going down to now 20, 30 miles. Even 100-mile ranges, a lot of them are in 20, 30. Some kind of give you 50 miles. So a lot of the other cars, you start seeing range degrading. Most batteries, at least in the last, I would say 5 to 7 years, have been pretty good on kind of meeting that industry standard of 80% capacity within 10 years. But you got the lonely wolves, so the early adopters, the earlier models. Obviously, in the EV industry, you need the massive volume to kind of build better batteries. So the first generation of a lot of cars have quite a bit of degradation.
And it requires you needing all those vehicles to get more data to actually know exactly what you can assess around that. Now, and the chemistries and all the different designs, I mean, again, so we're talking cylindrical, we're talking pouch design, all these different things. For you, that doesn't matter. Like from your perspective, it's like you bring us whatever you have, and we can make it work, right?
We got to deal with it. I mean, it's like I mean, obviously we know what we're dealing with. The cars that come to us are usually already 10 plus years old. So basically, the cars that are coming out now, we know when to expect them. But
right.
But basically, we kind of have a trajectory of what to deal with. But then we start looking at, you start getting early failures. So we do projects. We work with customers that have cars that failed early on. That those failures are not common. So there's customers that are patient and they're willing to have us experiment and come up with solutions for that. Obviously, we got to make things up. It's just basically, these manufacturers are not supporting these batteries. So we got to build tools. We got to build our own tools, build our own process, knowing how to qualify it, how to quantify it, and make it better. So usually, the early failures is where what we train on, and we kind of build up our tools to make that happen. And then usually 6 months to a year is kind of when we start seeing that same car kind of flowing in.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, really, again, a lot of this is we're talking, tip of the iceberg for how people understand that this is something you can even talk about, work on, and manage. I mean, but you've been at it for 9 years now, is what you said, right? What was it that led you finally to say, like, I want to open up a shop that resolves this? Was it a personal experience where you said, I'm not getting the service I need, essentially?
Well, I mean, I bought a Prius. I bought one with a bad battery, intentionally bought it with a bad battery because it was half of the cost. The crazy thought in my mind is like, this car is being sold for half price of another used car. Not because the used car has a better battery, just because it has a working battery versus mine is already dead. So I had to drive over 100 miles away to have somebody as like a side shop in an alley that is able to fix these and got the battery fixed. I'm like, like, why is these cars either junked, because Toyota's asking for more than the car's value for a battery, where we can actually fix a problematic area and put it back on the road. And then, I started a website, I started getting business in 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, this is working. I mean, I think we can bring more of these cars on the way. And 9 years later here, we've got a ton of them.
9 years later, here you are, not just doing hybrids, but obviously doing pure electric. So one thing you mentioned too is about, different types of battery styles. You mentioned you can diagnose down to even the cell itself, right? One thing that's always, people asking, okay, my battery goes bad, do I have to replace the whole battery? And I'll walk them through saying, well, like if you look at a Tesla battery, you've got 4,000 or so little cells, you've got modules for those cells, you can diagnose down to the module or to the cell itself. When that is happening, and you have a battery, for example, from a vehicle that's out of warranty, process-wise, if, for example, a cell went bad or a module went bad, what's the time that it takes for you to diagnose, resolve, and get that car back on the road?
That's a tricky question.
Well, I'm looking for high-level basics, but there's a lot that goes into that, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, Prius says, we can get them out in a couple hours. That's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's it's like 1.5 kilowatt hour battery or whatever. I mean, we don't even evaluate it in kilowatt hours because especially when it comes to hybrid vehicles, the customer just wants their car to work.
Right.
So, and the amount of range it has, the amount of storage it has doesn't really matter. What we care about the most is the quality of the cells. We want to make sure everything's charging together, discharging together. That's what's going to give you the longevity. That's what's going to give you the gas savings. When it gives you to electric car, obviously, every mile counts.
Right.
It's great that you guys are creating the charging app. It's just amazing because the first time I witnessed driving an electric car, I'm sorry, it's an old Nissan Leaf from my sister. She thought it was charging at her work, and then it ended up that the charger was broken and it did not charge for the full day. So I struggled like an hour and a half trying to find a charging station. I go a few miles to the next charging station for an hour, slow charge. It's like trying to find a fast one. It's not working. It's not working. It's not working. And it took me an hour and a half. This was like 12, 13 years ago, but
things have changed in the last decade. Yeah.
Things have changed quite a bit, yeah. So it's amazing having an app that kind of consolidates everything. But so range on EVs is a really big factor. So to answer your question is, the time frame really matters, and a lot of it is because a battery is something that degrades over time. Same thing that happens with Priuses in the past. Like, I don't feel satisfied from a moral perspective to give a Tesla battery that I repaired from X customer and give it to Y customer. So obviously we can swap a Tesla battery probably in 3 hours, or actually less with the equipment we have now. But the only way to do that is to have batteries on shelf that are already refurbished,
Right, yeah.
and you're giving it to a new customer. But I don't really feel more, obviously, this is not a good business practice, but I don't feel morally satisfied that I'm going to give a battery that could have been abused by X customer and give it to Y. So that's the reason why battery rebuilds right now, at least at this stage, is not that fast. So there's a lot of shops that can just change a module that is bad. I mean, that probably can take a day or so. We don't do that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of labor involved in dropping a Tesla battery, opening all the seals. And I don't want to say in general for everybody, batteries are getting less serviceable, which ends up with more challenges. It doesn't mean that that's the trajectory, right? A lot of batteries are modular. So, and when I say less serviceable, I mean in a sense of going to the module level, going to the cell level. But there is other solutions. It's just a matter of trying to use as much as we can out of these batteries. We want to give them as much life as we can while giving the customer a reliable car that gives them as much range as they can economically, right? That's kind of the bottom line of it. Hopefully things switch around. I said, when I say less serviceable, I'm just saying less than the earlier model. They're still repairable, they're still serviceable. It's just a matter of, you would hope that they keep in mind that these batteries are to be serviced. And that's
to your point, I think they're getting to a place where the design of that is not with that in mind. It's more so like, we just want to keep these things in the car as long as humanly possible. I think they're trying to build to that confidence level of like, no, we can, to your point, like, we can promise you this is going to be 80% warranty, 70% warranty. And I think the game that's being played potentially, if what you're describing is they don't have the intent of actually allowing it to ever be disassembled. It's more so, like you said, come to us with a bad battery, we'll sell you a new one. I mean, because again, for them, that's just easier for them to manage.
It is, but to be fair as well, I mean, just to kind of look at to both sides of the coin, is that they are building better batteries, right? Battery technology is getting improving, but I think the two things that are more problematic when it comes to side case scenarios where the car is a salvage title and the manufacturer is denying to service the car under warranty, even though salvage title has nothing to do with the battery. And in other cases is when you got early failures. But in terms of longevity in general, batteries have getting a lot better. So it's kind of both sides. Maybe you don't need to service it, but maybe you do. You need to use it for under their energy storages.
Well, again, I think what you're talking about is going to be something that down the line we're so early. Oddly enough, it feels like we've all been doing this for a long time. If you've been in it for a long time, but it's still so early. And as you described, as the technology continues to improve, the batteries are getting better. But as they're going down that process of making the batteries better, the serviceability is going to be fundamental down the line. It can't just be that we either keep needing more batteries in full size and full scale just to sell and swap out, and we can't. I mean, inevitably there's companies like Redwood Materials and others that are going to be doing recycling down the line. But we have to have the ability to offer up drivers the option to say, I want to take it to a shop like yours and actually get a diagnosis done and understand what the problem is, opposed to just saying, let's just throw another entire core at it and money at the problem. We got to be smarter about it.
Yeah, exactly. And we're part of a dispatch network for transportation, so we bring cars from all over the country. We had a customer that bought a remanufactured battery from X manufacturing and it failed in 2 years. Like, hey, I'm not doing that again.
That's a great example of lessons learned. You're on the front lines of learning all these lessons for people to basically avoid these problems down the line.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we got the car from Arizona, fixed it, sent it back to him. It's happier than ever.
There you go. Dario, anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, if we're really to be sustainable, we got to keep these cars on the road longer, right?
Well, that right there is the keys on the sustainability factor. We have had a lot of conversations today about that, and we don't need to be wasting materials and wasting these things that we can, in turn, put back on the road. So I know there's a lot we could have unpacked even for how you guys are looking at what you can do with batteries beyond the vehicle itself, but thank you so much for coming by, Adam. This is something that I think a lot of folks they always have that question of like, what if my battery goes bad? But there are solutions out there, and there are providers of services that you, for example, bring here to the Bay Area. So anything else you'd like to add before we go?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, it's, 2011 Nissan Leaf from 20-30 mile range now. We gave it more than 270 miles. So,
With the 30-mile range to 270-mile range. I got to say, that right there is your billboard.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more than a brand new, Nissan Leaf from, brand new Nissan, Leaf from Nissan with 62 kilowatt hour batteries. But we're happy to bring it on to life. Give it a new life. The batteries are the car is in perfect condition. Now it has a brand new battery. I mean, he can drive it for wherever he wants.
For as long as you want. So this is a great conversation for where I think the industry is needing to go. Thank you for spearheading that, making things better for people here locally. Hopefully you can get more people to understand how to work on these beyond the Bay Area. But in the interim, This is the Electrify Expo. We are here in San Francisco, the EV Reality Check booth powered by greencars.com.